All right, Thursday, October 19th. Bill, welcome to another episode of our Lathrop Mortgage podcast. We've got some good market updates, some information on what the Federal Reserve is doing to our money supply with a couple updates this week, and our general outlook as well. One of the biggest things we can do is stay educated and keep up on current events so that we're able to give relevant, good advice to our customers. So why don't you kick us off with a little bit of information on where our statistics are coming from and our overall vibe for the week. I know you just had a birthday, so you're probably feeling pretty good this week, hopefully.
Yeah, so far so good. Keeping Current Matters is the publication we get our information from, and it's multiple people in there like National Association of Realtors, Freddie Mac, Wall Street Journal, FHFA, CoreLogic, Zillow, Black Knight. I mean, all kinds of resources that involve with money, real estate, that type of thing, what's going on. And this is a mid-October update to give us some ideas what is happening. And some of the updates, just to be current in 2023, we were at a all-time foreclosure, near all-time foreclosure low, which I think that's representative of the values we have and the equity that's out there. So people are able to, if they run into a predicament, get out of it versus just losing their home, which is a great sign.
And that maybe was counterintuitive to what a few people thought when we had forbearances a few years ago. People were going to stop making their payments. Maybe they would get behind. Maybe they would have to get foreclosed upon if they couldn't catch back up. But really, since there's such good, strong equity and most homeowners have a good value position in their home, if it came to that, they would just sell their home, make a profit, and then actually maybe be off better if they can find another place to live after that. So that's kind of the backbone of why we haven't seen those foreclosures. Would you agree?
Yeah, because we saw, like we refer to them, the unicorn years during the pandemic, where equity just skyrocketed, because the activity and the number of buyers in the marketplace pushed that demand was so high, and that's sustained itself. Everybody thought the rates going up would push these values down, and it has not because of the limited supply out there. So that's kept those equity numbers good and helped people get in and out of situations that they needed to. Yeah, definitely.
And historically, I know that we're used to about a 4% annual home appreciation rate in America. During our unicorn years or COVID years, it was like 18% in some parts of the country, sometimes up to 20%. And so now we're back down to about 4.8%, somewhere in that range, I think is what's being projected. So more normalized. But like you said, we didn't go negative. We didn't even go back to zero. We just kind of came back to normal.
Yeah, it's still appreciated at a lesser amount. And some of the numbers are just kind of incredible. Like in Washington, give you an example, for the past 5 years, they've seen the average in Washington State increase 57%, the value. And nationwide, it's 57.3. So those numbers are big. And Idaho, 91. All the Californians moving up there. Arizona, 76. Oregon, 48. Florida is crazy at 80%, almost 81%.
And again, this is home price appreciation over the past 5 years for these states?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, price increases of what's happened. So if you bought 5 years ago, you're probably sitting there enjoying this update, but it's relative. It's happened across the country, some areas more than other, and you can see the influx of people going into certain markets.
So there's one part of what's making up this unique market right now is that there's such equity that even if a homeowner runs into trouble, they seem to have a way out, which is completely opposite of the picture in 2008.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the loans that we put on the books since 08 to 23 have all been solid because the rules changed dramatically and there were no, you could fog a mirror, get a loan type of thing. Now it's full documentation, everything's solid. Plus buyers are putting real money down. It wasn't zero down stuff. And so everything's been good. So that everybody has that fear, well, what happens? Well, there's going to be a bubble. No, because everything on the books is solid. And the values have sustained themselves, and they're still doing that. That's why we still believe it's if you can qualify in this price range, which is challenged today, but it's still a great time to buy because when the rates come back, we all know it's going to increase that competition, and more people are going to be eligible to buy, and there goes that supply and demand.
I think my line that we just kind of came up with at lunch was rates are more likely to come down before inventory goes up. So pretty good chance in this market, you're going to see a rate drop and everybody's going to scramble for whatever's left out there, which is already almost nothing. And so, like you said, competition is going to go through the roof and it'll be even harder. So if you can qualify now, take advantage of it because you do have that special position where not everybody can qualify in this market compared to a 5% or 6% market.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line is inventory, builders can't build fast enough, and baby boomers are not, they're holding on to their properties. I think the story is that 32% of rental owners plan to sell in the next 2 years, 56% are unlikely to, and 13% are slightly unlikely. So that tells you there's still that tied up market that people plan on keeping onto their investment properties instead of selling them like they normally would in a normal scenario.
And so that stat can tell us what landlords are thinking and what a landlord's outlook is on this market. Hey, I'm hanging on to this because it's a gold mine. I've got a property. I'm always going to be able to rent it, and I just have to keep up on that maintenance. But I'm not worried about values plummeting to where I have a worthless piece of property because that cash flow is going to get them through whatever market.
Well, bottom line, everybody has to live somewhere, so real estate's always been a historically great investment. The other factor that's out there is apartment construction is at a 40-year high. So that tell you, and you can see it everywhere you go. There's buildings going up, and you wish they were building single-family homes, but they're building apartments, and apartment rents are up there. But we figure when all this stuff hits the market, they're going to have to come out there and be competitive to get people in there because they're going to be fighting for which bodies go where. Because rents can't keep going up because they're going to be seeing vacancies because people can only afford so much. And we'll probably see that get a little bit aggressive as these things come together on new complexes.
So supply and demand may play more normal roles in the apartment vacancy world, but in the single family home world, we're just still seeing that lack of inventory to where it's like, hey, get it if you can.
Yeah. And the other factor is, rates are a challenge out there with what,
with how your qualifications are going to look and everything.
Yeah, it's up there. So if you do qualify, it is a good time to buy if it can fit in your budget, But Jerome Powell was speaking today and didn't really say what we want to hear. We want to hear things slowing down and that they're going to slow down on their increasing, and stop, and not have to, increase any rates to sell treasuries at a higher rate.
And we want to listen to Jerome Powell, at least what he has to say, because he's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, right? So this is important, and his speeches carry a lot of weight and can be market moving.
Yes, hit on the head. It does, and so we're watching the 10-year today, getting to its highest levels we've seen in some time. So it's a challenge. But you talk about rates, and that brings up another topic that 1 in 4 homeowners say high mortgage rates don't impact their decision to sell their home because 43% and also 43% of the homeowners would not need a new mortgage to buy a new home. So that's
the key one right there. So read that stat again. 40-something% of homeowners.
43% of the current homeowners in the U.S., if they sell their home, would not need a mortgage to buy a new home.
So they would net enough proceeds from the sale of their home to go buy the new home in cash, theoretically.
Correct. And that's why 1 in 4 are not worried about interest rates, which those are different ratios. But bottom line is there's a sector of the market that, hey, I'm okay with whatever because I don't need to deal with it. And others are not bothered by it because they can adjust to it and adapt to it, because their income adjusts it, whatever.
So that's a pretty big stat where not 100% of the people are impacted by interest rates.
Yeah, it's huge. And we've dealt with some clients, that are doing that where we're watching the rates and they're going, well, we don't care. I'll have my loan for 6 months till I get my property sold, whatever the time frame might be.
And that's why you're seeing inventory is still suffering, even though rates are up there, because people can still make moves. A lot of people are in a good position after the past several years.
Well, a big challenge out there is if somebody owns their home free and clear, they're not hurt or there's no urgency for them to, I think that's the part of the equation that's vanished in this market, urgency. They're waiting to find that property, and that's why it's a challenge because that property, there's a limited supply of those. And when they find the one worth moving for, that's why we're seeing a little bit of an adjustment. There's still a lot of activity out there. So, lenders are doing loans, but not as many as they're used to. And the reasoning behind that is people are motivated, there's reasons to move. You just got married, or if you're going to have your family size is increasing, or if you got divorced. Those are reasons that are probably some of the biggest reasons why people do move.
Well, and I think we have a stat on that we can get to later, but I think surprisingly, and I was along the lines with you thinking that's all the mortgages that I'm seeing right now are people that have a need, right? They want to have another kid, and maybe they're already feeling like, oh, our house is too small with one child, we're going to have a second. But that's only like 13% of the market is moving based on need. the majority of the market is moving to be closer to family or friends. And that was the main motivator that we were seeing in the market is people want to be close to their other people.
Yeah. Or their grandchildren or their parents, those kinds of things. That's what they'll move for. Those are the factors. And the other factor that's involved in this kind of where we're dealing with interest rates, 70% of the people of loans in the U.S. today, 70%, almost 71, have a rate of 4% or less. So there's a factor where people are trying to adjust to the interest rate fluctuation. And that's huge. A lot of people, like you said, there's reasons to move or they choose to. That's taken some of those, like in 20 and 21, people were just anxious to get a house because they could afford it. And now everybody's, if you can find that home, they're anxious to get it. But that's a challenge to find that home and with these current rates. And we believe, it's still a great time. Here's another statistic from FHFA. Home price changes since 1991. Get that. So that's been like a little over 30 years. In the state of Washington, the national average is 297%. Nationwide. So the always question is what were rates back then? People think, well, what are homes going to be worth? Well, the same thing. It's still holding its value and increasing. Washington's 451%. So everybody bought a home back in 1991 and still has it. They're sitting in an incredible position, And so all those things are great. But it's been across the country, and those, every state has had a positive enhancement as far as that goes. But Americans are also sitting on tremendous equity. 68.7% have paid their mortgage off or have at least 50% equity in their property.
Well, and let's go back 1 second to the 70% of homeowners that have a rate under 4%. Those people are almost locked into their house because they're not going to find cheaper housing anywhere else.
So there's got to be a reason to move. That's the hard adjustment, because the average U.S. homeowner, this is from CoreLogic, has $290,000 in equity. Now, that's not somebody that bought 2 months ago. I'm talking about over a period of time. Right now, let's say the last 5 years, where we've seen all these increases. That's a lot because they paid them down, or they acquired, so the equity position is huge because what the appreciation has been. And so that's great for people because what a lot of people have done, they want to buy another piece of real estate. So they're able to borrow money from their current home to purchase an investment property, for the down payment portion. So the equity's been used in a lot of different ways for people's capabilities to add to their real estate portfolio, because a lot of people, real estate has been their retirement. They keep these properties, they own them, they paid their mortgages off, and it's a great source of revenue. But you're right, you got to maintain them, take care of them, do that kind of stuff. Some people love it, some people hate it. That's why I hire management companies. But it's a great source, and those are things to look at in this market. So we see it. Of course, nobody has that crystal ball. Everything is kind of a little hazy, but we still see the values out there, and these reports kind of sustain that information. The other thing is this interesting fact from the National Association of Realtors: 77% of home sellers, are empty nesters. So they have nobody under the age of 18 in their home,
So what kind of insight could we take from that?
Just that it's easier to move, because when you have children or whatever family you're taking care of, then you're tied into a location or whatnot. And so you're seeing that, but 77%. So there's people that are ready so there's always that demand out there is not going to disappear. So when we see these rates hopefully come back to a range of attractiveness or even less than where they are today, I don't say that's attractive, but it'll hopefully induce some activity if they can get some listings out there. Listings popped up in October so far for the month. That's good, but it hasn't hit any record numbers by any means. It's just increased, which is a good sign.
Well, and my fear is, what if things don't get better? What if they get worse? Or if, rates do continue to go up and prices continue to, kind of go up and inventory stays slow? Whenever you have the ability to do something, if you can take advantage of it without disrupting any other parts of your life, I really would encourage doing that, because you just don't know what the future holds. And I see so many mortgage advisors talking about, hey, rates are going to come down, we'll refinance, no problem. Hopefully, yes. But, if the other part happens, then you're glad you didn't wait for the exact same reason, because now you're in something that you would have never been able to have. So get something if you can afford it. Hopefully you can make it better in the near future. And if you can't, at least you didn't wait until you were all the way priced out.
Absolutely. Because that's the challenge. I mean, if we could have 100,000 more homes built tomorrow, they'd all be gone, even at these rates, just because that demand is still out there. But if you can do it today, like you said, if you qualify, it's a great time to do it, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. We know these rates are going to come back. We know the federal government's got to get back involved when you face the music of a slower economy. We're seeing it now with all the layoffs happening in the state of Washington right now. That's happening everywhere. And it seems to go under the radar. It's not the headline that they want to put out there everywhere, but it's happening. And when that happens, it's a question whether there's going to be this soft landing they think from the economy. It's going to be harsh. And a lot of people, because we're dealing with the inflationary factors out there that are not under control. So you look at those details, and it's challenging.
Yeah, it does seem tough out there. So that's my encouragement, not to be a fearmonger, but if you can do it, do it. Because in my experience of life, anytime I've had an opportunity, more often than not, those opportunities, they end up fading away, or they're only like limited time opportunities. And you can strike while the iron's hot if it's available to you. And then you might be sitting for another 5, 6, 7 years in some cases, especially people that have variable income. If you can make something happen when your income is strong and you can qualify and you can find the house, go ahead and do that. Because what if your income dips? You can still afford everything, but you wouldn't technically qualify. Then you wouldn't be able to buy in the future for that reason either. So many variables that could go into, what makes up that decision for somebody. But I'm always of that mindset that, sooner is better than later.
Right. I segues back into the pre-approval method. There's never too soon to get pre-approved, because then, especially if you're in a fluctuating, if your job is not just a straight salary, if there's any fluctuation of your income or shift differential or all the details that can enhance overtime, maybe see a lot more overtime because they have less people doing those jobs. So you have to do more of them. And those things all come into play, but you got to get those numbers factored in. You can't just think, I'm making X amount of dollars a month, I can qualify for this. Get with your lender, go through those details with the underwriter signing off on it, because they're the final answer. It's not just somebody saying, hey, we should be able to use this. It's get the real deal, get the solid information so you can make that commitment when you're ready. If that property pops up, you can pounce on it and take advantage of it.
And I would also say, again, we kind of beat this with a stick, but work with a lender that you can talk to every week. And especially if you're making offers, check in on interest rates before you make your offers, and just keep current. Even if it's every week, every couple of days, just say, hey, what are rates doing? Can you update my quote? Can you update my quote? It'll take minimal time on our part. And then everyone's keeping updated and know what you're getting into, because the fluctuation is that volatile. I wouldn't say it's necessarily that huge day to day, but it does change every single day. And this current week, I saw at least a 1/4 point in rate adjustment to the negative side. So,
yeah. And then when Powell speaks, it overreacts. And so you got to wait for a day to see where the market really is going to be, and it's tough. I mean, I love the quote from Freddie Mac, and it really describes kind of the market out there. And they basically said, the reduction in supply has outweighed the decrease in demand. Thus, prices have started to increase even if sales have fallen. So there's less properties to sell, so they're not hitting the numbers they used to because there aren't as many homes to sell. But that's why prices have stayed up there, because normally you would think that would soften. But,
right, so it's a misleading statistic on one of those factors.
But it's so well put there, because that's why, and the Wall Street Journal also confirmed same thing. They're not falling, the values. And I think Seattle last month had a 1.7% increase in value. Now, it's not huge, but it's up. It's not going down.
It's a positive number.
Yeah. Portland was 0.1, so it's less than Oregon. Phoenix is 1% per month. That's great. The national average is 0.6. So it still is going up there. I mean, not at crazy numbers, but if that continues, that's showing that ability, to gain your equity and stuff like that. So it's a good investment, as well as just the fact to have a home. I mean, that's
the other thing too. Some people will always look at the home as an investment, but it is also a tangible asset that you live in and you use that. And I would say you get more utility out of the use of the home because that's an everyday thing. The equity position, the investment position, that's only going to come up, when you're going to make a move or sell the home, which, given that's going to be a huge asset and that'll be a big deal, but the daily livability is also a huge factor as well. So it's just as important.
Yeah. And here's some of the future aspects. CoreLogic, they anticipate home prices to reach mid-single digit growth rate by end of the year. But here's future. They anticipate, 23 to be at 3.32. This is nationally. 2024, 2.17, 25, 3.24, 26, 3.79, and 27, 4.18. What I can derive from that, as you've seen it slowly increase, is we're seeing rates slowly decrease because that is going to increase that demand out there and put those numbers and increase the numbers hopefully. Because then, if rates do come down, we'll see, I believe, more people willing to sell their homes because then they can afford to move more comfortably instead of having sticker shock on the new house from the house they're leaving. And then so when for the reasons they have to move, family, whatever, I want to be closer to somebody, or I just want to be someplace warm, whatever it might be, those things will come out.
So our current outlook this week is going to be pretty much remaining the same as last week. Get in if you can, get while the getting's good. And we've seen some interesting numbers out there, some encouraging numbers on appreciation and home value. We're seeing some movement from the Fed on whether or not they're going to make any more drastic moves on controlling our money supply. And we're just kind of getting through it week by week.
Yeah. The other fact is the highest on new home sales between 300 and 749,000. That's the highest activity level. Yeah. Anything above 750 is a little bit lower, obviously, qualification. But that's the other thing too. They've made our conforming loan limit 750,000. So in Thurston County, so it gets you the ability to finance quite a bit of that. So it makes it, with increased prices, gives you the tools to get there.
So with all that being said, it's still a great time to buy. If you can get a piece of real estate, it's historically still going to hopefully perform as a great asset as it has always done and a great investment. And we're here to help people get involved and crunch the numbers and help them determine whether it's a fit for them right now within their budget overall, or whether a little more planning is needed. And if they want to wait, how can we strategize on those couple of things?
Yeah, same thing. And also a great time to get a hold of their agent if they've got one, if they're thinking about selling. What's the market doing? I mean, get the professional opinion. Don't go what you see.
If you have a house to sell, don't go on Redfin. Yeah. Actually call an agent and say, hey, what can I realistically get for this in my market? The Redfin numbers are crazy. I mean, my house, it's like 50 grand way over. I mean, and I know this because my neighbor just sold. So I have a data point right there. So be careful when you're looking online and thinking, hey, I can make these moves. Go and talk to a professional and get your actual numbers. For example, I have a client this week. They're not ready to do anything until January to March. Made their application, did a soft pull on their credit, so we didn't hit anything on their credit report. And they've got real numbers. Now they can really talk about what the payment looks like, what the cash to close is going to look like. They're going to sell, stay somewhere with family, and then purchase. And so they really want to make sure they have their ducks in a row before going through that. And we've done all that 3 months ahead of time. Absolutely no problem, and we're happy to help. Now we'll stay in touch weekly or every couple of weeks until they're closer to start making offers. And everybody feels really good, and you're not rushing that. And when it comes time to make the offer, it could be a rushed, really fast, let's get this going. But since they've done their homework up front and put the legwork in, it's not going to feel rushed. It's just going to feel like it was swiftly executed.
Well, they've done the due diligence with you. Hopefully they've done the same thing with the real estate agent to say, hey, if we're going to market this in January, where should we be priced? So they got a real number, and then how long do you think it should be out there? The average time on the market is not very long still,
right?
Because there's not as much out there. So it's a great time to get things, going. But you definitely need those players in your corner. Have your lender get you pre-approved all the way through it. And like you said, we pull a soft pull, so it doesn't ding their credit. We also give them the option to opt out of other things, so it helps protect them from getting hammered by everybody. And it gives them a full loan approval with a soft pull. So that's awesome. So there's no reason to say, oh, it's going to hurt this. No.
We'll protect you. And we'll make sure that you opt out of your credit as well, too. So your solicitations aren't going crazy on the phone.
Make sure other lenders will give you a full-blown approval with a soft pull. And then when you do find your property, we do have to do the actual full-blown credit. But then then it's done, and you're ready to go.
Well, let's wrap this podcast up. I think this is actually going to be technically our 13th podcast, although we've done a couple with guests. So we're cranking right along. We're loving it. No end in sight, hopefully.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
All right.
Take
Have
care.
a good one.
Bye.
Thanks.